Okay, this is our last video. We've already covered secret number 1. We already covered secret number 3. And now we are finishing the end of secret number 2. I share in this video the single biggest thing that was keeping me stuck. And this is often the biggest aha that people in my programs get. So I'm excited to share it with you. Becoming an independent driver is just a skill. So let's look at the 3 stages of establishing any skill. Number 1, you have a strategy. So let's say you're learning to read. You have the strategy of the phonics book. Step 2 is you need scaffolding. So when you were learning to read, you had your parents reading to you, etc., helping you figure it out. And then once you have scaffolding, you can then move towards self-improvement. And then you basically just have this skill where you can read all sorts of things. And likewise, we'll do another example. So strategy, you have your driver's manual. Scaffolding, you don't get to just go out into a car and just start driving. You have another person there guiding you and helping you through it. But then you get the skill and then you get to work on your own. Even when you get your driver's license, though, once you get out of that learner's permit phase, you're not a phenomenal driver. There's still self-improvement that you're going to be doing, but you can do it on your own now. And then you can just drive wherever you want to. Now, if you stopped learning to read at this stage here, or you stopped learning to drive before you finished your learner's permit, your life would be more constrained. Like if you can't drive yourself places or you can't read, the ideas you can take in, all those things, you have a limited life. Your life gets smaller. So anyway, those are the 3 steps: strategy, scaffolding, and then self-improvement. So here's the thing. These happen sequentially. And if any part of the process is missing, everything downstream doesn't matter. So if you don't have scaffolding, then even if you have the other parts, you still don't build the skill. Now, tell me if this is true for you, because this was true for me for most of my life. As adults, many of us try to skip the scaffolding stage. And I have a theory around this, and this is pulled from my own experience. My theory is this. It's because we, especially with ADHD, feel ashamed. I got a lot of scaffolding growing up, and my mom tells me all the time how I wasted all the support. And I feel guilty about that. So I had this thing for my whole life, which is I'm going to prove myself. I'm going to help myself first, prove myself, then maybe I'm entitled to more help from others. Now, here's the thing. You didn't know this at the time, but will adding scaffolding to an ineffective strategy suddenly make that strategy work? And all that happened growing up is we just had all this scaffolding from our teachers and parents and family added to strategies that didn't work for our brain. And so they didn't give us the right support. They didn't know how to help us. And all that it wasn't just go to waste for my mom, but what was the experience like for me? It's a negative experience for both people, but we carry so much of the shame for letting them down. But here's the thing. How many of these can you do as an adult? Reading, brushing your teeth, playing some sort of sport, playing some sort of musical instrument, driving, swimming. How many of these can you or could you at some point do as an adult? Question number 2, how many of them did you learn without scaffolding? So I'm going to let you in on a little secret, okay? Neurotypicals need scaffolding to build skills too. Here's all that happened so growing up, they got fed the mainstream neurotypical diet of motivation, willpower, and discipline, which works for them. They're like, sit down and do it. Okay. And then they had the scaffolding, and then they had self-improvement, right? Doing their homework, working on the study skills. And they built this skill of being able to do tasks when they decide to, not when their brain decides to. Here's what happened growing up for us with ADHD. We got the scaffolding. We had our parents and our teachers helping us. We even did the work. We still got our assignments done. We tried to sit down and do our study skills. It's not like you were just doing nothing the whole time. You were trying to do it. And we got fed the mainstream diet of motivation, willpower, and discipline. And how well does this strategy work for us? It doesn't. We only were missing one piece, but it was the first piece in the puzzle. And so everything downstream didn't happen. And this is why even people who are in their 70s will say that they still don't have this skill where they can do tasks when they decide, not when their brain decides. because we didn't get the right strategy growing up. Now, as an adult, we intuitively know this. So we're like, there's only one missing piece. Like, if I just had the strategy, everything would work. So how many of you are obsessed over finding the right strategies? And you are obsessing over, right? You go into all the books and you go into all the articles online. You're like, oh, I don't like articles. I'm going to watch YouTube videos. And you go into all the YouTube videos. And then you go into all the apps and you're like, that's a lot of apps. And then you go into the bullet journals and the Pomodoro timers. And then you go on to Udemy and all these places. And I need to figure this out. And then you come to free challenges, right? And I'm saying this as someone that was obsessed over strategy for most of my life. So we're obsessed over strategy, and with good reason. But here's what happens now. Here's where your gap is. You already now, unless this is like the first day that you're on this journey to try to figure this out as an adult, you have enough of the right strategies. And I'm sharing with you. We have some additional little pieces, but like, this is the core stuff that I teach in my paid program. This is the core of it. So you have the strategy that works. So you can use what I've shared. Then as adults, we skip the scaffolding stage because we feel ashamed, and also because neurotypicals don't need scaffolding to get things done as adults. So why should I? So it's like in that invisible fence. And then we go and we're like, okay, I'm going to sit down. Aaron told me what to do during the challenge. I got the strategy. Next 2 weeks, I am making this happen. I am going. It's going to happen. I'm motivated. I'm sick of this mess in my house. I'm sick of this business not growing forward. But what happens is, because we skip the necessary scaffolding stage, that neurotypicals need to learn things, and we've needed to learn anything complex that we've learned. Everything downstream doesn't happen, and we still, year after year, decade after decade, still don't have this skill. How many of you have been aware that this is a problem and trying to fix it? Now, some of you are probably like me, and you have a lot of yabba. So how many of you have this yabba? Like, Aaron, people can learn some stuff on their own too. Like, are you saying that anytime you want to learn something, you need scaffolding? Like, that's not true. I can think of things. That's how my brain works. So here's why you can learn some things without scaffolding. And I learned this from David Epstein's book, Range, where he talks about two types of learning. There's kind learning environments and wicked learning environments. Here's what kind learning environments are, which his point in the book is most of the virtuosos, most of the top performers that get lauded, right? These chess champions and these violin experts and these amazing athletes do it in kind learning environments. So actions lead to predictable outcomes. Feedback is immediate and accurate, and patterns can be easily recognized. So chess is difficult, right? Negotiating pieces on a chessboard is difficult, but you move the piece, there are a set of predictable outcomes, and you can get feedback because things, you go and use the bow wrong on your violin, you get that feedback. And so patterns can be recognized. They might be complex patterns, but they're recognizable, versus a wicked learning environment, which is what this type of skill is and what most complex skills are. So the same action can lead to different outcomes at different times. Feedback is delayed and hard to interpret. A lot of the problems you're dealing with now have nothing to do with today or yesterday. They have to do with what you didn't do 3 months ago. Your brain can't figure out that cause and effect. And accordingly, patterns are hard to recognize because there are so many different inputs and outputs and delays that how do you know what's leading to what? And instead of negotiating pieces on a chessboard, negotiating in the real world where there's so many other variables would be an example of that. And so you can learn to play guitar on your own. Like, you can. It's a kind learning environment. What's noticeable though is you can learn it with scaffolding way faster. And even in those domains, like the athletes and the violin people and the chess people, they still all have coaches and scaffolds because you just can do it at a much higher level. But it still is possible to learn it on your own. I taught myself to juggle. Pretty cool, right? But it's learnable on your own. But then there are things that are wicked, which is most of the things that we're trying to do that are not learnable on our own. And so we absolutely guarantee ourselves failure when we try to skip that scaffolding stage that neurotypicals and us need to learn complex things. So I'll give you an example. It's like, I don't know, I couldn't get my action machine to start today. I'm procrastinating on this thing, even though I know I want to do it. Okay. What's the reason? Like, there's an infinite number of possible causes, right? And they can all overlap, right? Maybe the task is too big or it's unclear, or maybe I burned myself out from working too much yesterday. Maybe I didn't sleep well. Maybe I've overstimulated my dopamine and so I can't concentrate on these things. Maybe I just need to push through. Maybe this is one of those like suck it up and grit your teeth and make it happen. Or maybe I'm not prioritizing the right tasks, right? There's so many variables. And what happens when we are overwhelmed with variables and we can't figure something out? What do? Shut down, do something else. Exactly. And I'm the same way, just so you know. Okay, so that is why some things can be learned without scaffolding, but some things just can't. So I actually think of scaffolding as little gutter guards or bumper guards that you can put in when you're learning to bowl as a kid. Like it just keeps you on the path so you can actually knock over some pins. Because you need to knock over some pins. You need to have some wins to keep going, because bowling and goals are very unmotivating if you don't see results. And that's kind of the way I think about scaffolding. So that is our bit around summiting the habit hill. And what I learned after many years of going the self-help route and trying to figure this out on my own. So I'm not just telling you something because I want you to pay me money and sign up for my program. Like that would be fine. I use this all the time. I spend way more money on scaffolding. Like we're talking tens of thousands of dollars a year. So I'm not just telling you something. This is a truth that has transformed my life. If you'd like the details about the scaffolding we can provide, I have a link below where you can submit your email address and I will send you a video with details on that.